podcast is brought to you by me, Amanda Bear. We'll talk about topics that you don't normally read about in marketing literature that tell you more about the what, but not the how of marketing in the real world. You'll hear great conversations with leaders and up-and-comers who intersect with marketing and have been testing and learning and paving the way every day. Visit futurefitmarketing.com.au for access to resources and past episodes. You have the foundations of a great marketing plan, aligned to the business strategy, but your ability to deliver on outcomes to that plan really relies on a certain team dynamic and inertia to thrive. Having managed teams through the pandemic, and let's be honest, it's been a pretty challenging time to lead, and hearing from multiple leaders, the employee experience and the success of any team is building the right culture and fostering the right environment for individuals to do their best work. It really is the superpower that drives performance, attracts and retains top talent, and fuels creativity, innovation, and unites a team behind a common purpose. There is certainly a lot of research that tells us when organisations get the employee experience right, they can achieve higher customer satisfaction and innovation and generate higher profits than those that don't. So how do you go about building a strong culture in your marketing team and align that to your marketing plan to deliver on business outcomes? I interviewed Bev Bury, Director of Marketing Operations for the University of Adelaide. Bev has experience working across a range of brands and sectors on both client and agency side. Growing up in agencies in the UK, Bev worked on household brands such as Sainsbury's, Boots, and Save the Children before coming to Australia and moving client side. Bev spent 13 years leading marketing teams for state tourism organisations before moving to the University of Adelaide. Throughout Bev's career, she has been part of and led many diverse teams and firmly believes the most successful marketing teams have a strong culture at their core. I have to say, I am really excited about this topic today, and I would like to welcome Bev Bury, who is the Director of Marketing Operations for the University of Adelaide. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you. Great to be here, and I'm excited to talk about this too. One of my favourite topics.
If I talk about the topic now, the pandemic has created some really interesting opportunities for teams to really review their ways of working, and a focus on building the right employee experience is really important to culture, productivity, and of course retention as well. What's your view on creating the right environment for marketing teams to grow and thrive?
Firstly, you are 100% right. The pandemic has absolutely created an opportunity. And so too, I think, have just general consumer trends. We live in a world now where we can track our Uber driver in real time, yes, and we can get food delivered in a box to our doorway. So I think people are expecting a similar experience at work as well, that smooth process, that really great experience. So it's the pandemic, but I also think there's some just general trends that are influencing the situation as well. So in 2022, I think employees have definitely taken the reins of the job market, and people are looking for a company that can meet or exceed their needs. So I think that's why culture needs to be absolutely part of the planning process. You could have the best marketing strategy, but if you don't have the employee experience to support it, it's going to fall down. So I think that to create the right environment, organisations definitely need to place more focus on culture, operations and tech. So it's the whole marketing ecosystem. And with that culture piece, it's no longer just the job of HR. I think everybody has to take ownership of it, right from your CMO to the broader team as well. Everyone has a part to play. So for me, the right environment is having that clear strategy and some clear priorities and expectations that everybody can work to. But it's also about creating the space for those conversations around culture. So if you have you're really clear on your strategic priorities. Well, what is the culture you need to be able to deliver against those? And that needs to be a really collaborative process as well with the rest of the team. So that's the exciting journey that I've been on since joining the University of Adelaide, and we're right in the thick of it. And I think it's great to be in a role where I can lead some of those conversations as well.
Now, obviously, current environment, the only thing that you can rely on is that things have constantly changed, whether it's a shift in strategy, a pivot in marketing plans. How can you still keep teams aligned on the right initiatives and keep them engaged and motivated to perform?
It's a focus for all marketers, I think, right now. We're transitioning back to strategies, aren't we? We've had to be so reactive over the last couple of years. So I think to keep people engaged and motivated, it does start with that clear strategy, everybody knowing what you need to do and what the focus areas are. And having that big, juicy goal as well that everyone can recite in their sleep. And I think that was what tourism did really well, because every year we knew the visitor expenditure figure that we were aiming for. And that really motivated everybody, and everybody referred to it throughout the year. So I think clear strategy, that big, hairy, audacious goal, and constant communication. I know sometimes I might feel like I'm repeating the same thing over and over to the team, but it can take that for it to sink in and for everybody to get on board. So I think, repeating your purpose, your goals at every opportunity is really important as well to keep everybody on track. And then communicating those milestones as well and key achievements. And again, I refer back to tourism because we knew that annual figure, and then data would come out every quarter to let us know how we were tracking, and that would be communicated across the team. Hopefully you'd be celebrating every quarter, but if the numbers were slightly down, it gave you an opportunity to come together as a team and reflect, and then get motivated for the next quarter. What can you tweak? What have we learned? What can we do better? And with that communication, then recognising the teams and the individuals that are giving it 100%. And making sure that they are being rewarded publicly as well. I think that can really keep everybody engaged and motivated when you can see people doing a great job around you, and that's being verbalised quite clearly. And then as a leader, I think just listening as well to the team. I try and check in regularly with the whole team, and that doesn't have to be a formal thing, but it's just listening to see, again, just what's working, what's not, what do they need from me, what do I need from them, and just making sure that people are feeling heard, listened to, and then that you're then actioning that as well. I think it's not just not going anywhere. You've taken that on board, and you're improving things all the while. And I think finally then prioritising development. There's some research that shows that personal development is what keeps people at work. It's what motivates people to stay in organisations. So I think we have to prioritise that for employees. And that all comes back to the employee experience and just making sure that people are feeling valued, that they can see growth in their role and opportunities as well within the organisation.
You said a lot of awesome points there, and I want to unpack a couple of them, right? Yeah. So you talk about actionability, celebrating wins or coming together and sort of reflecting on the challenges, personal development and value, employee value, or feeling valued. Can you, if you reflect on your time at tourism, or even at university right now, can you give some practical examples of how you've done any of those?
I think in terms of being valued, what I have appreciated as an employee is time with my leadership team, times with my boss as well, just to have those conversations and to reflect and to learn and to be given feedback. And that's where I have certainly seen the most growth personally. And then in terms of the teams that I lead, again, I mean, it's really simple stuff, I think, Amanda, for me anyway, but it's about checking in with the team regularly and not just having those work conversations as well, but, seeing how people's weekends were and, asking questions about their families and just being a human as well.
A couple of the good points that you've made around actionability, celebrating wins,
Yes.
and then checking in if things haven't gone quite right. Can you give me examples of how you've done that with the team?
In terms of celebrating wins at tourism, we used to get together the entire head office every month. So we would have monthly staff meetings, and we would celebrate any wins those. And it was just a public reference to the achievements and what had worked well and what people had achieved over the last month. And we also had a rewards program where we had 4 really great values that we lived and breathed as a team. And at any point over the month, there were slips around the office where you could just write down a note to say, well, this person lived that value and here's why. And they were called out in the staff meeting as well. So I think sometimes it's simple things. I know as an individual, I just like to know that I'm having an impact and people can see that. Sometimes people just want a little pat on the back as well. And I think it's, again, it's simple things, but just making the time to celebrate, whether it's, quick drink after work or a team lunch, or doing things together. At tourism, we were really lucky in that the product that we were promoting was incredible. So making time to get out into region as a team was really important. And quite often, if we had a tough quarter or a challenging quarter, or you've just spent time getting out into region and meeting tourism operators and experiencing new product, I would always come back, and the team would as well, just so energized. And that felt rewarding as well, because you were talking to tourism operators where you might have made a difference to their business. And that was our whole purpose at tourism.
A great tip there is it can be small things, but relatively often it doesn't have to be a big transformation or things like that. That those small things really make a difference. I had the same sort of approach. I used to send you just made my day cards that would get a copy to a manager, and it's anywhere around the company. It was just those small things that gave someone instant recognition that they were noticed, they were recognized. It's great advice. If you think about getting the fundamentals of the employee experience right, how do you practically build that alongside a marketing plan?
Great question, and something that we're doing right now at the University of Adelaide. So for me, employee experience comes down to 3 core things: culture, operations, and tech. So to practically build that alongside your marketing plan, I think it all comes back to having a clear marketing strategy, but it's reviewing that strategy, and maybe as a team you've got a 3 or 5 year vision as well. Where are you heading as a marketing team? Where do you want to be? And it's reviewing that and listing some of the behaviours that are important to you all as a team and that you think are going to help you get there. So just to take an example, one of ours at the university is to be champion consumer centricity. So, what does that mean? And how do we go about doing that? So, and what type of behaviours will help us do that? So that's around, always asking why. Why are we in market at that time of month? Why are we promoting those products? And having the insights, the consumer insights to back that up. So one of our behaviours might be to not be afraid to ask why. Then I think it's about having a health check. So if you've identified all of these behaviours that are important, how are you currently doing? are you asking why? If collaboration is important, how well are you collaborating right now? And this is the part where I'm up to with the university is going out and asking the team, how are we going? We've recognised some core areas. How do you think we're going? And then using those insights to determine, well, where as a leadership team do we need to focus our efforts on? And what can we do to improve those scores or improve that feedback? And then there's a great book that I read by Chris Hurst. He was the former CEO of Host Havas, and the book is called No Leadership. It's a great book, and there's a great chapter in there around culture, and he talks about culture being like concrete, and that when you first pour the concrete, you can shape it, and it's very movable, and you can make it into whatever you want it to be. But that concrete sets, and it can be quite hard to then smash the concrete. But he talks about smashing the concrete as being really important sometimes to just change culture or how you work and processes. So I think, the next stage, certainly for me at the university, is once we've got those areas to focus on, do we need to smash any concrete? Do we need to chip away at some? Or is the concrete great? So I love that analogy. And then the final step, I think, in building this alongside your marketing plan is holding leadership to account, because it can quickly fall down if leaders aren't living those values and aren't living the culture or leading that culture. Everyone has a part to play, but I do find if the leaders don't play their part, it can very quickly disintegrate into nothing.
Can you share any company that's doing it well? Or have you come across any research that demonstrates how sort of that employee experience delivers on particularly business outcomes?
Yeah, there is some great research that I refer to quite a lot, and it's by an author called Jacob Brown. He wrote the book, The Employee Experience Advantage, and he conducted an analysis of 250 global organizations, and he found that companies that scored the highest on employee experience benchmarks have 4 times higher average profits, 2 times higher average revenues, and 40% lower turnover compared to those that don't. So that, for me, if you're ever building a business case or you're talking about the importance of culture, that for me just demonstrates that an investment in employee experience does pay off. And there are people that are doing it well. I'm sure they are out there, but I find organisations do keep their cultures quite closely guarded as well. Patagonia, everybody probably familiar with that brand and the impact that they've had. But that's a really interesting brand, I think, an organisation. And the founder, there's a great quote where he says, it's how you climb a mountain is more important than getting to the top. And I love that, because I think the how comes down to the culture, the values, the employee experience. And they've also got this really clear purpose. We're in business to save our home planet. So that's an easy one, right, for everybody to get behind. And they really live and breathe that throughout the organisation. So they do things like, after a year at the company, you can take up to 2 months off with pay to volunteer with an environmental organisational project. And he advocates for people going on great adventures and experiencing and using the product. So I think that's always a great brand that I love reading about. I think they do wonderful things. But I also looked on Glassdoor recently and just because I was interested to know who is leading the way in culture and values. And it was companies like Atlassian, Slack, Asana, new companies, digital companies, and startup companies. So I think they are definitely the companies that are doing it better and that have had the opportunity to start their culture from scratch more recently, where yes, technical skills to a marketer are always going to be important, but I think the soft skills and that culture is becoming more and more important to the employee. Yeah, I'd love. Do you have any where you've worked, Amanda?
I have to say, current company, it feels like there's a little bit of a secret sauce, right? And I think you mentioned Patagonia, where purpose is embedded in everything that they do, whether it's the employee experience, whether it's their outward facing brand, etc. And so what you see outside, if that's sort of translated in the organization as well, that 360 view is very reflective of how employees then feel. So I have to say, the business I'm in at Higher Up in particular, that intersection between social impact, people with disability, and technology, and that melding of the two, where we've got a lot of people with sort of deep disability knowledge on one side, deep technology knowledge on the other side. It's a beautiful blend of culture and shaking things up a little bit, which I absolutely enjoy. And a lot of the work that we do is impactful work, and it's just the right thing to do by our employees and the right thing to do by by our customers as well. It will translate down the line in the right business outcomes from a profitability standpoint, but at the moment, it is the right sort of impactful things at the time. We also made some very conscious decisions around our ways of working. So people had to nominate if they wanted to work remote or hybrid or fully in the office. And so there was no ambiguity around whether you needed to come back into the office. You made your choice, the company agreed to it. And I think where often people get stuck is where those lines are a little bit too blurry. And so you said it right up front. If you've got a clear strategy, clear leadership that are living and breathing the values of the organisation, your employees are going to want to behave that same way.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think one thing I loved at South Australia Tourism Commission is we had a very ambitious 2020 goal, and we knew to get there we needed to shake up the culture and the values a little bit. And we landed on 4 values that, now I still refer to, and they were go boldly, dig deeper, can do, and share the love. So they've been in place now 5 years, and it took a while for them to become, operationalized and embedded. But now the marketing team just live and breathe that every day, and it becomes part of your language, and intrinsically you're making business decisions around those values as well. So I think when there's a clear purpose, some really strong values that everybody can jump on board, that's a great starting point.
Knowing there's still a lot of challenges around labour shortages, it's so highly competitive for key talent. When you have built the right marketing environment for people to thrive, how do you leverage that across the organisation, and can you use that as a tool for retention and advocacy?
Definitely. And I think, leveraging it across the organisation, that's where the research that I referred to previously, that's where stats like that really come into play to demonstrate the business benefit as well that focusing on the employee experience can have. And I think it's really interesting because as marketers, we will spend so much time mapping out the consumer experience, but we forget about ourselves. So I think to leverage it across the organisation, you have to map out that employee experience as well. And I'm looking forward to doing this at the university, because I think there are moments for us as employees, right from that, even before you're hired, to be honest, because you are reading things online, you are connected via LinkedIn. That employer experience starts even before you're at the organisation. And then there are those key moments, the onboarding process is so critical. That's where the purpose, the values, you really get under the skin of those, and having the tools to then live and breathe that from the get-go is really important. and then how you celebrate your first year, or all of those things. So I think mapping out that employee experience is really important for marketing team and the whole organization, because there are so many opportunities to improve that employee experience and really have an impact. And then that ultimately, when people are having a positive experience, that has an impact on your retention and your advocacy. Because if people have a great experience on their first day, of course they're going to post that. If they're on LinkedIn and use that a lot, they're going to share that on LinkedIn, or share it with friends and other people in their network. So I think it's about mapping it out, finding those moments and investing the time, not just within your marketing team, but across the organization. And, I am lucky that I'm in a role now where I can focus on some of these things, but quite often there isn't a dedicated role within an organization that can focus on operations and culture. It's, somebody has to absorb that as part of their job and be passionate about it to really drive that forward. So it will be interesting to see over the next year or two how many marketing teams do evolve their structure to focus on this type of thing, because I think it is going to become really important.
Now, as a leader in your organisation as well, what are the resources you tap into? What are the things that you do to stay future fit?
I love this question. Future fit. I think it's so important. And I'll be honest in that I haven't always focused on future fit. But I think what I have learnt, and I say that just to give that some context, I say that because sometimes it is easy to get wrapped up in the day-to-day of what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, and not think about the year ahead, or because it's so busy. So I think to stay future fit, it's really important to carve out some time in your day, your week as a leader to self-reflect. And I diarise that now and make time for it, because otherwise it can be easy just to keep going with the day-to-day stuff that you have to do. So making time to self-reflect has been a bit of a game changer for me, because it gives me time to think about, okay, well, what are we aiming for this year? In 2 years' time, are we on track? What do I need from the team? What do they need from me? I have referenced it, and this is a great term. There's a great term called balcony time. So, and that's about stepping off of the dance floor and up onto the balcony as a leader and just observing the dance floor.
I love that.
Yeah, what are people dancing to? Are they all dancing to the same tune, in the same way? And just making time to think about those bigger questions. And as a team, are you future fit? What do people need from you? And creating the space then, not only for yourself, but for your team to self-reflect as well. And then just some tools that I use. I really recommend Holly Ransom's book, The Leading Edge. It's a great book that if you're not clear on your purpose, your values, how to self-reflect, where to start, it gives some great tips, practical tips that you can do right there and then. And then there are some podcasts that I listen to. So one that I tap into a lot is Fast Track with Margie Hartley. And that's a great one that covers all types of leadership conversations. And I'll use that if I am finding something challenging or not quite sure how to tackle. There's always some useful advice on her podcast. And I also listen to Ty Hayes' Lean Mean Marketing Machines, which has got some great episodes with some great marketing leaders and CMOs. So, I think making time, you and I talked about being, listening to podcasts a lot. And I think, whether it's a podcast, a book, or just spending time to think, it's really important to carve out that time.
I would add adding awesome conversations like this where, you know, we're mutually learning from great leaders as well. So Bev, with that, thank you so much for joining us. I've learnt a lot, and I hope our listeners have as well. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Great to have the opportunity to talk about this. Thanks, Amanda.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, share this podcast series with someone else, and thanks for paying it forward.